The glass shattered against the marble floor of New York's Pinnacle Hotel ballroom, but no one turned to look. All eyes remained fixed on the stage where 18-year-old Jordan Ellis stood, microphone in hand, staring directly at billionaire tech CEO Ethan Wallace. "My mother was the maid he thought no one would notice," Jordan said, voice clear despite the trembling hands. "And I am his child. If you found out your real father was one of the richest men in America, would you embrace the legacy or reject it to stand with your mother?" Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family. Enjoy the story. 7 words. 7 simple words that sliced through Ethan Wallace's carefully constructed world like a blade through silk. The man who had revolutionized artificial intelligence, whose face graced magazine covers and whose name opened doors around the globe, stood frozen at the podium, keynote speech forgotten as blood drained from his face. Recognition. That was the expression that flashed across his features. Not confusion, not denial. Recognition. Camera phones rose in unison throughout the crowd of tech executives, investors, and media personalities. Flashbulbs erupted like lightning. The moment, captured from hundreds of angles, would be global news within minutes. Ethan's security team moved toward Jordan, but Ethan raised his hand, stopping them. His first public reaction wasn't anger or dismissal. It was a single word that the microphones barely caught. Wait. 17 years earlier, Alana Ellis moved silently through the gleaming penthouse office, emptying trash bins and wiping surfaces with practiced efficiency. 3 weeks into her job with elite cleaning services, she'd learned the rules. Be thorough, be quick, be invisible, especially when cleaning executive offices at Wallace Technologies. Don't make eye contact with the higher-ups, her supervisor had warned. Don't engage in conversation. These people don't want to know you exist. That suited Alana fine. After fleeing Atlanta with barely enough money for a Greyhound ticket and 1 suitcase of belongings, invisibility felt like safety. California represented a fresh start, as far from her past as geography allowed. She approached the main office cautiously. The CEO was known to work late, and cleaners were instructed to skip his space when occupied. She peered through the glass wall, then relaxed, seeing the room empty. Alana pushed the door open with her hip, rolling her cleaning cart inside. The spacious office spoke of casual wealth, awards displayed without ostentation, furniture that cost more than her yearly salary chosen for comfort rather than show. A half-empty coffee cup sat on the desk beside scattered papers covered with handwritten equations. As she reached for the cup, a voice behind her made her jump. "Leave that. I'm not finished with it." Ethan Wallace stood in the doorway, jacket discarded, tie loosened. Younger in person than he appeared in media photos. More human. "I'm sorry," Alana said, stepping back. "I thought the office was empty." She expected him to dismiss her, to wave her away like an annoying insect. Instead, he studied her with unexpected focus. "You knew. Not a question. An observation. 3 weeks," she confirmed, already moving toward her cart. "I'll come back later." "No, stay. Just work around me." Alana hesitated, caught between her supervisor's instructions and a direct order from the CEO himself. She nodded once and returned to her tasks, hyper-aware of his presence as he settled behind his desk. The silence stretched between them, broken only by the soft sounds of her cleaning and his occasional typing. She felt his eyes on her more than once, but kept her focus downward. When she dropped a bottle of cleaning spray, the sudden noise startling in the quiet room, he looked up sharply. Their eyes met for the first time. Something electric passed between them, a current of recognition that made no logical sense. Alana felt heat rise to her cheeks as she retrieved the bottle. "You have an Atlanta accent," he said suddenly. "À la nostre tende, surprise au véridique caution." "You can tell. I grew up in Savannah." A smile softened his features. "Georgia stays in your voice." The simple observation, the acknowledgement of something personal about her, shifted the air in the room. For the first time since arriving in California, Alana felt seen. "What brought you west?" he asked, leaning back in his chair. Warning bells sounded in her mind. This wasn't professional. This wasn't safe. It's something about his direct gaze made lying impossible. A fresh start, she said simply. He nodded, understanding in his eyes. That's what California is for, isn't it? Seconde chance. When she finished cleaning, he was still working, the glow of his computer screen illuminating his face in the dimming light. As she pushed her cart toward the door, his voice stopped her. What's your name? She hesitated. Alana. Metan. As if she wouldn't know who he was. As if they were just two people meeting normally. I know, she replied, allowing a small smile. Good night, Mr. Wallace. Good night, Alana from Atlanta. She felt his eyes follow her out the door. Present-day New York City, in the shocked silence of the ballroom, Jordan's words hung in the air. Ethan Wallace took one step toward the young person who had just claimed to be his child, his expression unreadable. Security surrounded him, creating a barrier between CEO and teenager. Cameras continued flashing as Jordan was escorted from the stage, chin held high, eyes never leaving Ethan's face. What made the story shocking wasn't just the claim, but the contrast. A black teenager raised by a former maid, suddenly holding the future of a Silicon Valley dynasty in their hands. 17 years of secrets collapsed in 9 words, and the child who spoke them had only begun to reveal the truth. Have you ever been invisible to someone powerful, only to become the center of their world? What would you sacrifice to be truly seen? When cameras capture your downfall, the world never forgets. The Elite Cleaning Services orientation video played on a flickering TV mounted to the wall of a cramped break room. 6 new employees watched with expressions ranging from boredom to desperate attention. Alana belonged to the latter group, notepad in hand, writing down every instruction. Remember, our clients pay for discretion along with cleanliness. The narrator explained over footage of uniformed cleaners working silently in luxury spaces. You are not there to be seen or heard. You are there to make spaces perfect, then disappear. Beside Alana, a woman in her 50s snorted quietly. Translation: rich folks don't want to remember we exist. Alana offered a small smile, but kept writing. She couldn't afford skepticism, couldn't afford anything but complete focus on keeping this job. The supervisor, Ms. Chun, clicked off the video and distributed assignment sheets. Ellis, you're on the Wallace Technologies executive floor. 6th through 8th floors, Monday through Friday, 7 p.m. to midnight. Alana nodded, gripping the paper tightly. Wallace Technologies meant stable hours and reliable pay. Exactly what she needed after weeks of scraping by on temporary positions. Executive floors have special protocols, Ms. Chun continued. If an office is occupied, you skip it and return later. No conversations with staff. No personal phone use on premises. Wallace personally reviews security footage when anything goes missing. The message was clear: one mistake meant termination. That evening, Alana stood before the gleaming Wallace Technologies building, its glass exterior reflecting the sunset in shades of gold and orange. The contrast between this monument to success and her own precarious situation wasn't lost on her. 2 months ago, she'd been a hospital administrative assistant in Atlanta with a steady paycheck and a small but comfortable apartment. Now she pushed a cleaning cart through service entrances, invisible by design. The executive floor was empty when she arrived, the workday long over for those whose decisions shaped the tech landscape. Alana moved methodically through the space, vacuuming plush carpets, wiping down glass walls, emptying trash bins filled with evidence of lives vastly different from her own. Expensive coffee cups, lunch containers from high-end restaurants, meeting notes about millions of dollars changing hands. At 10:43 p.m., she approached the CEO's office suite for the first time. Unlike her initial encounter with Ethan Wallace weeks later, this night his space stood empty, perfectly ordered except for a suit jacket hanging over a chair. Alana worked efficiently, hyper-aware of the security cameras tracking her movements. As she dusted a shelf of awards and photographs, one image caught her attention: a younger Ethan Wallace standing on a dock, fishing rod in hand, laughing at whoever held the camera. He looked unburdened, wearing faded jeans and a t-shirt rather than the designer suits that now defined his public image. Human rather than icon. She moved on quickly, finishing her tasks and marking the CEO's office complete on her checklist. First night, successful. No mistakes. For 3 weeks, Alana maintained perfect invisibility. She arrived precisely on time, completed her duties without incident, and left without interacting with the occasional late-working executive. Her supervisor noted her thoroughness with brief approval. The job wasn't fulfilling, but it paid enough to cover her tiny studio apartment and build a modest savings cushion. Then came a night that changed everything. Lights from Ethan Wallace's office spilled into the darkened hallway as Alana approached with a cart. She slowed, prepared to mark his space for later cleaning, when his door opened. Wallace himself appeared, suit jacket discarded, sleeves rolled up to expose forearms marked with what looked like pen notes. "Perfect timing," he said, surprising her. "I was about to look for someone from the cleaning staff." Alana froze, uncertain how to respond. "Is there a problem, sir?" "Coffee disaster." He gestured inside where a dark puddle spread across his desk, dangerously close to papers and electronics. "My own clumsiness." Professionalism overrode caution. Alana quickly gathered supplies from her cart and followed him into the office, focusing immediately on containing the spill. She worked silently, aware of him watching as she blotted liquid from important-looking documents. "You're very efficient," he observed. "Thank you, sir." "Ethan," he corrected. "And you are." The question violated every protocol in her training. Cleaners weren't supposed to become individuals with names and identities. Yet something in his direct gaze made anonymous retreat impossible. "Alana Ellis." "Thank you, Alana." He helped her gather the soaked papers, their hands occasionally brushing in the process. Each contact sent an unexpected current through her fingers. As she finished cleaning, he asked, "How long have you been with Elite?" 3 weeks, Sir Ethan." "And before that?" Again, the question surprised her. Before she could formulate a professional deflection, truth slipped out. "Atlanta, hospital administration." Interest flashed in his eyes. "That's quite a career change." "Life change," she corrected, then immediately regretted the personal disclosure. To her surprise, he nodded with what looked like genuine understanding. "Sometimes we need complete reinvention." He studied her face. "California's good for that." When she left his office that night, Alana felt a shift in the atmosphere between them, a recognition that had transformed her from invisible to seen. She told herself it was nothing, just momentary kindness from someone whose world would never truly intersect with hers. She told herself the electricity when their hands touched was imagination. She was wrong on all counts. Have you ever been dismissed as just your job title? How would you respond if someone finally saw the person behind the label? $20 billion, the headline announced. Wallace Technologies' valuation soars after Pentagon contract. Alana folded the newspaper and returned to cleaning the conference room where Wallace executives had celebrated earlier that evening. Empty champagne bottles and discarded glasses littered the massive table. Crumpled napkins and abandoned plates suggested a party that had moved elsewhere, leaving behind the evidence for invisible hands to erase. 9 weeks into her employment, Alana had settled into comfortable routine. The executive floor held few surprises, except for occasional brief exchanges with Ethan Wallace himself, who increasingly worked late on nights she cleaned. Their interactions remained professional, but it softened into something almost friendly. He asked about her day. She inquired about projects that had him working until midnight. Neither acknowledged the subtle current that seemed to flow between them during these moments. As she finished the conference room, Alana noticed light still spilling from the CEO's office at the end of the hall. Nearly midnight on a celebration night. She'd expected the building to be empty. She approached cautiously, knocking lightly on the door frame. "Mr. Wallace? Would you like me to come back later?" Ethan sat alone behind his desk, jacket discarded, tie loosened. An open bottle of expensive scotch stood beside a half-filled glass. He looked up, expression brightening when he saw her. "Alana, come in." His words carried the slight softening of someone who'd been drinking, though he appeared far from intoxicated. "And I've told you, it's Ethan." She hesitated at the threshold. "I can return tomorrow." "Please." He gestured to the chair across from him. "I could use the company." Every training protocol screamed against entering, against engaging with a client, especially one who'd been drinking. But something in his expression, a vulnerability she'd never seen in his public persona, made refusal impossible. Alana stepped inside, leaving her cleaning cart in the hallway. She remained standing, maintaining professional distance. "Congratulations on the contract," she offered. $20 billion is impressive." Surprise flickered across his features. "You follow business news?" "I read." She allowed a small smile. "And it's hard to miss when your company is front-page news." $20 billion, he repeated, the number falling heavily between them. "Do you know what my father said when I called him? Not bad for a quarter's work." He laughed without humor. "Nothing is ever enough." The personal admission shifted the atmosphere in the room. Alana recognized she was seeing something few people ever witnessed. Ethan Wallace, vulnerable and human beneath the success. "Parents," she said simply. "They see us through their own expectations." "Exactly." He studied her with new interest. "You understand that." "My mother wanted me to be a doctor," Alana admitted. "She was disappointed when I chose hospital administration instead. Never said it directly, but I knew. And now you're cleaning offices in California." His observation carried no judgment, only curiosity. "That must disappoint her more." "She doesn't know." The truth slipped out before Alana could stop it. "She thinks I'm still in Atlanta, still in healthcare." Ethan nodded slowly. "We all have our necessary fictions." He poured another measure of scotch, then unexpectedly offered the glass to her. Another boundary crossed, another protocol violated. Alana hesitated, then accepted. "To necessary fictions," she said, taking a small sip before returning the glass. His fingers brushed hers during the exchange, the contact brief but electric. Their eyes met over the rim of the glass. "Why did you really leave Atlanta, Alana?" he asked softly. The question penetrated her careful defenses. Something about the late hour, the shared drink, the isolation of the empty building made pretense feel pointless. "A relationship ended badly," she said finally. The kind of ending that makes staying impossible. Understanding passed across his features. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. It needed to end." She moved toward the window, needing physical distance from the intensity of his gaze. California was a clean break. He joined her at the window. The nighttime city spread below them like a carpet of lights. "Clean breaks are rare," he said, standing close enough that she could detect his cologne. "Most endings are messy, partial things." "Speaking from experience?" she asked, glancing up at him. "More than I care to admit." His smile carried a hint of sadness. "Success makes people assume your personal life must be equally successful, and it's not. Currently engaged to someone chosen more for business compatibility than passion." The admission seemed to surprise even him. "That probably sounds terrible." "It sounds honest," Alana corrected. "Honesty is rare enough to be valuable." His eyes held hers, something unspoken passing between them. "You're not what I expected, Alana Ellis." "What did you expect from your cleaning staff?" "I didn't expect to see them at all." His hand moved to her face, fingertips brushing her cheek with surprising gentleness. "I certainly didn't expect you." The moment stretched between them, taut with possibility and danger. Every logical part of Alana's mind screamed retreat, highlighted the power imbalance, the professional boundaries, the potential consequences. But logic crumbled when his lips found hers. The kiss deepened, unleashing weeks of unacknowledged tension. His hands tangled in her hair as hers gripped his shirt, pulling him closer. They moved backward until she felt the edge of his desk against her thighs. "We shouldn't," she whispered against his mouth, even as her body arched toward him. "Probably not," he agreed, his hands already exploring the curve of her waist. "Tell me to stop." She didn't. Later, as moonlight streamed through the office windows, Alana lay in Ethan's arms on the leather couch in his private sitting area, their bodies still entwined, the reality of what had happened beginning to settle around them. "What happens now?" she asked, voice barely audible. His fingers traced patterns on her bare shoulder. "I don't know," he admitted, "but I'm not sorry. Neither was she. Not yet. When chemistry overrides common sense, do you call a mistake or fate? What price would you pay for one perfect night?" The termination notice arrived by email at 9:17 a.m., exactly 11 hours after Alana left Ethan's office. The message from Elite Cleaning Services cited inappropriate workplace conduct observed through security footage. No details, no opportunity to explain, just immediate dismissal and a final paycheck that would barely cover next month's rent. Alana stared at her phone screen, nausea rising as implications cascaded through her mind. She'd risked everything for one night, one moment of connection. Now her fragile new beginning in California lay in ruins. She tried calling Ethan's direct line, a number she'd never used before, only to reach his executive assistant, who politely but firmly explained Mr. Wallace was unavailable. Would Alana like to leave a message? Her name and the reason for her call? Pride stopped her from explaining who she was, the cleaner he'd slept with last night, now jobless because of it. Instead, she hung up, cheeks burning with humiliation. By evening, anger replaced shock. Where was his promised honesty now? Had he reported her himself, a convenient way to remove evidence of his indiscretion? Or had someone else viewed the footage and made the decision without his knowledge? Either way, the power imbalance between them stood in stark relief. His life continued unchanged while hers collapsed. 3 days passed without word from him. Alana applied for new positions, dipped into her meager savings, and tried to ignore the memory of his touch that haunted her sleep. She told herself it was better this way, a clean end to something that could never have developed into anything real. Then the package arrived. No return address marked the plain envelope delivered to her apartment, but the contents left no doubt about its sender. Inside, she found a check for $25,000 and a handwritten note on Wallace Technologies' letterhead. "Alana, I've just learned about your termination. This wasn't my doing. I've been in Washington this week, unreachable during negotiations. I can't undo what happened, but I can help. This should cover expenses until you find new employment. No strings attached. Call me when you're ready to talk. I meant what I said about honesty being valuable." The check represented more money than Alana had ever held at once, enough to stabilize her situation completely. Yet something about it felt wrong, transactional. Payment for services rendered rather than genuine concern. She didn't cash it, didn't call the private number he'd included. Instead, she intensified her job search, determined to rebuild without his intervention. 2 weeks later, still unemployed and watching her savings dwindle dangerously, Alana noticed the first symptoms. Nausea in the mornings, unusual fatigue, tenderness that couldn't be explained by stress alone. The drugstore pregnancy test confirmed what her body already knew. Sitting on the edge of her bathtub, positive test in hand, Alana's mind raced through impossible calculations. She was 27, unemployed, alone in a city where housing costs consumed most entry-level salaries. A baby wasn't part of any plan she'd made. Yet something fierce and protective stirred inside her at the thought of this new life. Unexpected evidence of the one night she'd felt truly seen. The question now became unavoidable. Tell Ethan or not? She found her answer in the business section of the Sunday paper. A photograph showed Ethan Wallace at a charity gala, his arm around a willowy blonde identified as fiancée Catherine Winthrop, daughter of Winthrop Capital founder. Their engagement announcement included plans for a spring wedding. The decision crystallized with painful clarity. Whatever connection they'd shared that night, Ethan's path led elsewhere. Telling him would only create complications neither of them needed, forcing him to choose between public humiliation or private guilt, between the dynasty marriage his business required and obligation to a child conceived with the cleaning staff. Alana placed her hand on her still flat stomach, whispering a promise to the life growing inside her. "We'll be okay. Just us." She finally cashed his check the next day, setting aside the moral complexity in favor of practical necessity. The money would provide critical stability during pregnancy and early motherhood. She framed it not as payment, but as the only support this child would ever receive from its father. As her body changed over subsequent weeks, Alana crafted a new plan. California had become too expensive, too full of reminders. Once the baby came, they would return to Atlanta where her mother could help with childcare. She'd explain the pregnancy as the result of a brief relationship that hadn't worked out, a partial truth her family would accept without question. No one would ever connect her child to the billionaire tech mogul whose face appeared with increasing frequency on magazine covers and television interviews. No one would know that the baby carried the DNA of one of America's most celebrated innovators. The secret would remain hers alone, a necessary fiction to protect both her child and its father from a truth neither world was ready to accept. Would you tell someone who changed your life but might not remember your name? When does pride become self-destruction? The business magazine lay open on Alana's kitchen table, Ethan's face staring up from his glossy cover beneath the headline. America's most eligible CEO. Inside, Ethan Wallace's vision for the future. 3 months pregnant. With morning sickness finally subsiding, Alana had maintained her resolution to keep the pregnancy private. It's something about seeing his face, the profile celebrating his perfect life trajectory, triggered a surge of doubt. Did perfection include the right to know about his child? The article mentioned his engagement to Catherine Winthrop, describing their union as a marriage of tech and finance royalty that would consolidate power across industries. Photos showed them at charity events, her diamond ring catching light, his hand possessively at her waist. Alana closed the magazine, hand moving instinctively to her slightly rounded stomach. Her child deserved to know its father, regardless of complications. Ethan deserved the choice to be involved or not. Decision made. She composed a carefully worded email to his private address. Ethan, I need to speak with you about an important personal matter that affects us both. I'm not asking for anything except a conversation. Alana Ellis. She hit send before courage failed her, then waited. Hours passed, then days. No response came. After a week of silence, Alana tried a more direct approach, calling his office during business hours. His assistant answered with professional detachment. Mr. Wallace's office. This is Alana Ellis. I need to speak with Ethan about an urgent personal matter. A brief pause. Ms. Ellis. Mr. Wallace is unavailable. May I ask what this concerns? It's private. Please tell him I called. I'll pass along the message. The assistant's tone cooled noticeably. However, Mr. Wallace has instructed that personal matters should be directed through appropriate channels. What does that mean? For former staff with concerns, Human Resources is the appropriate contact point. The dismissal stung with calculated precision. Alana was being categorized, filed away, redirected to departments designed to handle inconvenient people. This isn't about employment, she insisted. Please just tell him I called. Of course, the assistant replied without conviction. Is there anything else? Defeated, Alana ended the call. She tried the direct approach and failed to penetrate the protective barrier surrounding Ethan. Perhaps he'd never even seen her email, lost among thousands received daily. Perhaps his silence wasn't rejection, but ignorance. 2 days later, a courier delivered an envelope to her apartment. Inside, Alana found legal documents on heavy letterhead, a non-disclosure agreement accompanied by a check for $100,000. The message was unmistakable. Someone, Ethan or those protecting him, had understood exactly why she was reaching out. The response wasn't a conversation, but a transaction. Silence in exchange for financial support. The attached note, and signed but printed on Wallace Technologies' legal department stationery, stated, "This resolves all matters between parties. No further contact is requested or required." Alana sat motionless at her kitchen table, documents spread before her, devastation and rage battling within her chest. She hadn't even mentioned pregnancy in her messages. Had they assumed she was attempting extortion? Or did they simply shut down all potential complications with money before they could develop? Either way, the response told her everything about how Ethan, or at least his organization, viewed her, not as a person deserving respect, but as a problem requiring management. The check represented financial security through her pregnancy and beyond, enough to establish a comfortable life for her child. The NDA would legally prevent her from ever publicly identifying Ethan as the father. Her hand trembled as she picked up the documents, tears blurring the legal language designed to erase her from Ethan's narrative. The clinical coldness of the response made her previous encounters with him feel like fantasy. Had she imagined the connection between them, the vulnerability he'd shown? With sudden clarity, Alana understood her path forward. She carefully tore the check into pieces, watching them scatter across the table. The non-disclosure agreement she placed in a folder and signed but preserved. Someday her child might need to understand exactly what Ethan Wallace had been willing to pay for their non-existence. She would return to Atlanta earlier than planned. Her mother's spare room would provide shelter while she found work and prepared for the baby. California, with its broken promises and painful memories, had nothing left to offer. As she packed her belongings into the same suitcase she'd arrived with months earlier, Alana made a promise to her unborn child. "You'll never be anyone's secret shame," she whispered, hand cradling her growing stomach. "You'll never be reduced to a problem that money can solve." The child would know their father's name someday, would know the truth of their origin. But that knowledge would come when Alana could ensure it wouldn't wound them, when they were old enough to understand that their worth had nothing to do with Ethan Wallace's rejection. For now, she would build a life independent of his influence or resources. A life where his absence was a fact, not a defining wound. What matters isn't the bloodline, she decided, but the love surrounding a child's growth, and that at least she could provide in abundance. Have you ever been silenced with money? What would you choose, financial security or the right to your own story? They can buy your silence, but not your child's voice. "Jordan, we're gonna be late." Alana called up the stairs of her mother's modest Atlanta home, car keys jangling in her hand. 7 years had reshaped her life entirely. Motherhood transforming her from uncertain young woman to fierce protector, provider, and guide. "Coming." Jordan's voice echoed back, followed by the thunder of 10-year-old feet racing downstairs. Jordan Ellis burst into view, all kinetic energy and bright intelligence, backpack slung over one shoulder. The child's features carried echoes of both parents. Alana's warm brown eyes and determined chin, combined with Ethan's distinctive nose and quick, analytical gaze. "Got your science project?" Alana asked, ushering them toward the door. "Yep. Mrs. Wilson says I might qualify for the state competition if the solar battery works." Pride swelled in Alana's chest. Jordan's aptitude for technology had emerged early. An innate understanding of how things connected and functioned that teachers called extraordinary. Alana never mentioned whose genes might be responsible for that particular gift. Life in Atlanta had stabilized over the years. After Jordan's birth, Alana had completed online courses in medical coding, securing remote work that allowed flexible hours and decent pay. They'd moved from her mother's spare room to a small rental house in the same neighborhood. Their existence wasn't luxurious, but it was secure. Until now, the letter from her landlord had arrived yesterday. The house was being sold, leaving them 90 days to find new accommodations in Atlanta's increasingly expensive rental market. As Alana drove Jordan to school, her mind churned through limited options. Her mother's health problems meant moving back and wasn't feasible. Atlanta's housing costs had skyrocketed beyond what her salary could reasonably cover. "Mom? You're doing that thing with your eyebrows," Jordan observed from the passenger seat. "What thing?" The worried thinking thing. Jordan's perception always unsettled Alana, another trait inherited from a father the child had never met. "Is this about the house?" Alana sighed. "Yes, but don't worry. I'm exploring options." "Like what?" "Like..." Alana hesitated, the idea she'd been avoiding rising to the surface. "Like maybe California again." Jordan's eyes widened. "Really? Where you lived before I was born. The job market there is better for my skills, Alana explained, the practical truth easier than the complete one. And housing costs are actually comparable to Atlanta now. What she didn't say, California represented unfinished business, a chapter closed too abruptly. What she didn't admit even to herself. Part of her had always wondered what might have happened if she tried harder to reach Ethan directly, rather than through the barriers surrounding him. 2 weeks later, Alana accepted a position with a healthcare services company in San Francisco. The salary increase would offset higher living costs, and the company's reputation for supporting working parents had been the deciding factor. Their Atlanta goodbye was tearful, Jordan clinging to Alana's mother, Rosa promising to visit once they were settled. The cross-country drive gave them time to process the transition, mother and child plotting adventures in their new city between audiobooks and roadside diner meals. San Francisco welcomed them with fog-wrapped bridges and steep hills that made Jordan gasp with delight. Their apartment was smaller than their Atlanta house, but located in a neighborhood with excellent schools. Within days, a routine began to form. Alana working remotely while Jordan adjusted to a new school system. On her third day of work, Alana froze while reviewing her new company's client list, Wallace Technologies. The name jumped from her computer screen like an accusation. Her employer provided outsourced medical claims processing for numerous tech companies, Wallace is among them. The connection was distant. She wouldn't be working directly with their personnel, but the coincidence sent a chill through her body. That evening, after Jordan was asleep, Alana researched Ethan Wallace's current status. His company had expanded exponentially, branching into artificial intelligence applications that dominated multiple industries. Recent photos showed him at tech conferences, looking essentially unchanged despite the passing years. Still handsome, still commanding, now widely considered one of the most powerful figures in American business. His personal life had taken unexpected turns. The engagement to Catherine Winthrop had ended shortly after Alana left California. No marriage followed. Business profiles described him as intensely private, focused exclusively on his company's growth. No children were mentioned in any biography. Alana closed her laptop, unsettled by the research. Returning to California had been a practical decision based on economic necessity. She convinced herself the chapter with Ethan was firmly closed, irrelevant to their current lives. Yet here, she was searching for information about him within hours of discovering the tenuous connection. 3 weeks into their California life, the school called. Jordan had been selected for an advanced coding program, a special initiative sponsored by local tech companies to identify exceptional talent in public schools. Your child shows remarkable aptitude, the program coordinator explained when Alana arrived for the information session. The spatial reasoning and pattern recognition scores are among the highest we've seen. Pride mingled with unease as Alana reviewed the program details. The sponsoring companies would provide mentorship, equipment, and educational resources to selected students. Field trips to tech campuses were part of the curriculum. Among the sponsoring companies, Wallace Technologies. The coordinator continued enthusiastically. The program culminates in a showcase where students present projects to industry leaders. It's an incredible opportunity for networking. Alana's throat tightened. Which industry leaders attend these showcases? Oh, executives from all the sponsoring companies. Last year, Ethan Wallace himself attended. He's very invested in developing young talent. The room seemed to tilt slightly. Alana gripped her chair, possibilities cascading through her mind. Jordan, in the same room as Ethan. Jordan, displaying the brilliance inherited from a father who didn't know they existed. Is participation mandatory once selected? She asked carefully. The coordinator looked surprised. Well, no, but most families consider it a tremendous opportunity. Is there a concern? Alana forced a smile, just wondering about the time commitment with Jordan's other activities. That night, watching Jordan sleep, Alana confronted the question she'd avoided for years. Did her child have the right to know their father? Did Ethan have the right to know his child? The program would place Jordan in Ethan's orbit without her direct intervention. A coincidence or cosmic justice, depending on perspective. She could withdraw Jordan from the program to prevent any contact, or she could allow events to unfold naturally. By morning, her decision was made. Jordan would participate. What happened next would depend on forces beyond her control, genetics, timing, and the undeniable resemblance between father and child that grew more pronounced with each passing year. Sometimes the universe created opportunities that human planning never could. How would you face someone who changed your life but forgot your face? What words would finally leave your lips? The maintenance request form listed a simple problem: faulty lighting in the executive conference room of Medisink's downtown office building. As facilities manager, Paolo assigned the task to the newest member of his team. Take this one, Alana. 6th floor, Wallace Technologies leases the space. Their CEO is visiting today, so make it quick and clean. Alana's hand froze midway through signing the work order. Wallace Technologies? Yeah, big client. They're hosting some student coding thing this afternoon. The coding program. Of course. Jordan had mentioned the special session with industry mentors scheduled for today. Any chance I could take a different assignment? Alana asked, try to keep her voice casual. I have history with that company. Paolo's eyebrows rose. Good or bad history? Complicated. He shrugged. Sorry, we're short-staffed. Just get in before the students arrive at 2. 90 minutes later, Alana stood in Wallace Technologies' leased conference room, replacing bulbs in recessed fixtures. The space hummed with expensive technology. Interactive displays covered the walls. Prototype devices sat on charging stations around the perimeter. She worked efficiently, determined to finish before any executive arrived. The irony wasn't lost on her. Once again in Wallace territory wearing a maintenance uniform. Once again officially invisible. Just as she descended the ladder with her tools, the door opened. Ethan Wallace entered, head bent over a tablet, unaware of her presence. Older than in her memories, but essentially unchanged, still trim and commanding, silver now threading through his dark hair at the temples. He wore casual business attire, the same understated wealth she remembered. Alana froze, heartbeat thundering in her ears. After 10 years of absence, the physical reality of him was overwhelming. This man, whose DNA lived in their child, stood mere feet away, completely unaware of the connection. She could slip out silently. He hadn't noticed her yet, but something, curiosity, anger, unresolved history, kept her rooted in place. Excuse me, she said quietly. Ethan looked up, professional smile already forming, the polite acknowledgement given his service workers. Then recognition flickered across his features, his expression shifting from casual dismissal to stunned disbelief. Alana, the sound of her name and his voice unlocked a cascade of memories. His hands on her skin, whispered words in darkness, the electric connection that had resulted in Jordan. Hello, Ethan. Her voice remained steady despite the chaos of emotions beneath. Maintenance, she added, gesturing to her uniform. The lights are fixed. He stared as if seeing a ghost. You're in San Francisco. Recently returned. She moved toward the door, toolkit in hand. I should go. Wait. The word carried the same command she remembered. Gentle but expectant of compliance. How long have you been back in California? About a month. Alana kept her responses clipped, professional. Ethan set down his tablet, giving her his full attention. And you're working maintenance now? I'm a medical coding specialist, she corrected. This is a second job. Understanding passed across his features, the economic reality that necessitated multiple income streams. Something like guilt flickered in his eyes. Alana, The door opened again, interrupting whatever he'd been about to say. A young executive entered, surprised to find them. Mr. Wallace, the students are arriving downstairs. Give me 5 minutes, Chris. Ethan replied without looking away from Alana. When they were alone again, silence stretched between them. 10 years of unspoken history compressed into a single charged moment. I should have tried harder to reach you, he said finally. Anger flared unexpectedly. I did try to reach you. Your people sent me an NDA and a check instead of a conversation. Shock registered on his face. What are you talking about? The $100,000 to keep quiet. the legal document making it clear I was a problem to be managed. He stopped, understanding dawning. My father's legal team. They handled what they considered reputation management without my knowledge. The possibility that Ethan hadn't known about the payoff attempt had never occurred to Alana. She'd built years of resentment around his perceived dismissal. You didn't know? I was told you left California suddenly. Well, I couldn't reach you, I assumed. He trailed off, the weight of misconnections hanging between them. The executive knocked again. Sir, the program director needs you. Ethan's jaw tightened with frustration at the interruption. Alana, we need to talk properly. Please. He reached for his phone. Your number. Habit nearly made her refuse, but practicality prevailed. If Jordan was participating in his company's program, contact was inevitable. Better on her terms than by chance. She recited her number, watching as he entered it immediately. I'll call tonight, he promised. There's so much. Mr. Wallace, the students really are waiting, the voice outside insisted. Alana nodded toward the door. You should go. Those kids are excited to meet you. As she slipped past him into the hallway, Ethan's expression remained troubled, full of unasked questions. What he didn't know, couldn't know yet, was that among those waiting students was his own child, about to showcase coding skills inherited directly from him. Jordan and Ethan were minutes away from their first meeting. Alana hurried toward the elevators, mind racing. Should she go downstairs, intervene somehow, or let fate unfold its own pattern? By the time she reached the lobby, students were already filing into elevators, Jordan among them, excited, unaware that this ordinary Thursday afternoon would forever alter their understanding of identity and belonging. Some recognitions change everything, and some are just the beginning of truth unfolding. When someone powerful suddenly notices you again, is it opportunity or danger? Would you trust the recognition in their eyes? Alana's phone rang at exactly 9 o'clock that evening, an unknown number lighting up the screen. Jordan was already asleep, exhausted from the excitement of the day's coding session. Hello, Alana answered, moving to her small balcony where her voice wouldn't disturb her child. It's Ethan. His voice carried the same confident resonance she remembered, though softened for the late hour. Thank you for taking my call. You said you wanted to talk. Alana kept her tone neutral, protective barriers firmly in place. I do. A brief pause. Seeing you today was unexpected. 10 years is a long time. Yes, it is. The silence stretched, heavy with unspoken questions. Finally, Ethan spoke again. I tried to find you, Alana, after you left California. When I learned what happened with your job at Elite, I was out of the country. By the time I returned, you disappeared. I went back to Atlanta. I had people look for you there too, but you changed your number, your email. There was no trace. The revelation surprised her. She'd spent years believing he'd wanted to erase her from his life, not find her. Why did you look for me? She asked. The question she'd carried for a decade finally voiced. Because nothing about our interaction felt finished. His answer came without hesitation. Because I couldn't stop thinking about you. Because something real happened between us, despite the circumstances. Alana closed her eyes, his words unlocking memories she'd carefully contained. It doesn't matter now. Too much time has passed. Then why did you give me your number today? The directness of his question demanded equal honesty. Because I have a child in your company's coding program. The students I met today? Yes. Which one? Curiosity colored his voice. Alana's heart raced. This was the precipice, the moment before revelation that would forever change multiple lives. Once spoken, the truth couldn't be reclaimed. I'd rather not say. Not yet. She wasn't ready. Needed to understand his intentions first. I respect that. His acceptance came easier than expected. But I'd like to see you, Alana, properly, to talk about what happened 10 years ago and clear up misunderstandings. I don't think that's a good idea. Just coffee, he persisted. In public. No pressure. The practical part of Alana's mind cataloged reasons to refuse. The power imbalance still existed. Emotional complications threatened her carefully constructed life. Jordan's stability came first. Yet another part recognized the inevitable. Their paths had crossed again for a reason. Jordan was already in Ethan's orbit through the coding program. Better to engage directly than leave things to chance. One coffee, she agreed finally. Tomorrow morning at the Berkeley Cafe on Mission Street. 10 o'clock. I'll be there. After ending the call, Alana checked on Jordan, who slept peacefully, unaware of the conversation that might reshape their future. The child had returned from the coding session, bubbling with excitement about meeting the actual Ethan Wallace, who had personally commented on Jordan's project. He said my approach to the problem was exactly how he would have done it, Jordan had reported with glowing pride. And he asked my name twice, like he wanted to remember it specifically. Of course he had. Even without knowing the connection, Ethan would have recognized something familiar in Jordan's thinking patterns, in the approach to coding problems that mirrored his own. Nature echoing across generations, despite absence. The next morning, Alana arrived at the cafe 10 minutes early, selecting a table with a clear view of the entrance. She dressed carefully, professional but not formal, her natural curls framing her face in the style she'd worn when they first met. Ethan arrived precisely on time, scanning the room before his eyes found her. Several patrons recognized him, whispers following his path to her table. The most powerful tech CEO in America didn't often appear in neighborhood cafes. "Thank you for meeting me," he said, sliding into the chair across from her. Up close, Alana could see the decade etched in fine lines around his eyes and the increased silver at his temples. Success had aged him well, adding gravitas to his natural charisma. "You're causing quite a stir," she observed, nodding toward the other customers, trying to discreetly photograph him. "Occupational hazard." He smiled slightly. "I've learned to ignore it." The server approached, visibly nervous to take his order. Ethan treated her with easy courtesy, requesting black coffee without any of the demanding behavior often associated with the ultra-wealthy. When they were alone again, he studied Alana openly. "You look exactly as I remembered. That's not possible. 10 years changes people, not their essence." His gaze remained steady, not the things that matter. The coffee arrived, creating a brief interruption. Alana used the moment to regain emotional equilibrium, unsettled by the intensity of his focus. "You said you want to clear up misunderstandings," she prompted once the server departed. Ethan nodded, starting with what happened after our night together. "I never knew about the NDA or the payment offer. My father had established protocols for handling what he called potential complications to my public image. His legal team operated independently. You expect me to believe you knew nothing about it? It's the truth." His expression remained open, unflinching. "I was in Washington that week, then Tokyo. By the time I returned, you'd left California. I tried contacting you, but your number was disconnected, because I thought you paid me off to disappear." The bitterness she'd carried for years colored her voice despite her best efforts. "I would never have done that." His hand moved across the table, stopping just short of touching hers. "What happened between us meant something to me, Alana." She withdrew her hand slightly. "It was one night, Ethan. It was more than that." His certainty was unsettling. "We both know it. That's why you disappeared so completely. That's why I kept searching for years." The raw honesty in his voice cracked something in Alana's carefully maintained defenses. What if he was telling the truth? What if the barriers between them had been created by others, not by his choice? It would mean a decade of assumptions had been built on misunderstanding. It would mean Jordan's father hadn't rejected them. He simply hadn't known they existed. "I need to ask you something," she said carefully, "and I need complete honesty." Ethan nodded. "Of course. Why did your engagement end?" The one to Catherine Winthrop. Surprise flickered across his features at the unexpected question. "Because after meeting you, I couldn't pretend anymore. Couldn't marry someone for business advantages when I knew what real connection felt like." His answer landed with devastating simplicity. Alana sat perfectly still, absorbing its implications while coffee cooled untouched between them. When someone asks for your dignity packaged as honesty, do you give it away or weaponize their request? What's the most painful truth you've turned into power? Mom, look." Jordan burst through the apartment door, waving a tablet displaying the Wallace Technologies logo above a formal announcement. 3 days had passed since Alana's coffee with Ethan, days filled with careful consideration of next steps, of how much truth to reveal and when. "What am I looking at?" Alana asked, taking the tablet. "I'm a finalist." Jordan's excitement practically vibrated through the room. The coding competition. Only 10 students made it to the showcase, and I'm one of them. Alana scanned the announcement, pride mixing with apprehension. The Wallace Young Innovators Showcase would feature student projects before an audience of tech industry leaders, investors, and media. Finalists would present their work on stage at Wallace Technologies headquarters, with Ethan himself awarding the top prizes. "That's amazing," Alana said, embracing her beaming child. "I'm so proud of you. My project is being featured on the main stage." Jordan continued breathlessly. Mr. Wallace specifically requested it after seeing the prototype yesterday. Of course he had. Without knowing why, Ethan had been drawn to the work that reflected his own thought processes, his own innovative approach to problem solving. "When is the showcase?" Alana asked, already knowing the answer would complicate everything. 2 weeks from Saturday. You'll be there, right? Parents are in the front section. I wouldn't miss it. Alana kept her tone light despite the storm of implications. The showcase would place her and Jordan directly in Ethan's world, under media scrutiny and public attention. After Jordan disappeared into the bedroom to call Rosa with the news, Alana sat heavily on the couch, mind racing. She hadn't told Ethan about Jordan during their coffee meeting, had kept the conversation focused on clearing up past misunderstandings rather than revealing new truths. They'd parted with tentative peace between them, agreeing to meet again the following week. She planned to introduce the subject of Jordan then, to explain carefully and privately before any public interaction could occur. Now, the timeline had accelerated. The showcase would force disclosure one way or another. Jordan's resemblance to Ethan was too striking to go unnoticed in direct proximity, especially with media cameras present. Her phone chimed with a text from Ethan himself. "Just saw the finalist list. Your child is incredibly talented. The coding approach is remarkable. Reminds me of my early work. Looking forward to meeting properly at the showcase." He still didn't know. Still hadn't connected the mathematical genius of Jordan Ellis with the night they'd shared a decade ago. The text confirmed Alana's decision. She needed to tell him before the event, on her terms, not in a moment of public recognition. She replied simply, "Can we move our meeting up? Tomorrow instead of next week?" His response came immediately. "Of course. My office? For PM?" Alana hesitated. His office meant his territory, his power structure. Central Park instead? By the lake, at 4 p.m. Some things are better discussed outside corporate walls. A longer pause followed before his reply. "I'll be there." The next afternoon, Alana arrived at the designated meeting spot 15 minutes early, selecting a bench with partial privacy from passing joggers and tourists. She brought a small envelope containing something she'd kept for a decade, the only piece of evidence she'd preserved from that night with Ethan. He appeared precisely at 4, dressed more casually than at the cafe. Jeans and a simple button-down that wouldn't draw attention in the park setting. Without the trappings of corporate power, he looked almost ordinary, a handsome man in his 40s approaching a park bench on a sunny afternoon. "This is refreshing," he said, sitting beside her. "My security team nearly had a meltdown when I said I was meeting someone in the park without them. You came alone? They're lurking discreetly nearby." His smile acknowledged the absurdity. Apparently, billionaires aren't supposed to have normal conversations in public spaces. The moment of levity eased some of Alana's tension. "Thank you for agreeing to meet here. Your message suggested something important." His expression grew serious. "What's going on, Alana?" She took a deep breath, fingers tightening around the envelope in her lap. "The finalist from the coding program. My child. There's something you should know before the showcase." Ethan waited, giving her space to continue at her own pace. "After I left California 10 years ago, I discovered I was pregnant." The words emerged steady despite her racing heart. "I tried to contact you. That's when I received the NDA and payment offer from your legal team." Understanding dawned slowly across his features, followed by shock as the implications registered fully. "You were pregnant with my child?" Alana nodded, watching emotions cascade across his face. Disbelief, confusion, the beginning of comprehension. "The coding finalist, Jordan Ellis, is our child?" His voice had dropped to a near whisper. "Yes." Ethan stood abruptly, pacing a few steps away before turning back to face her. His expression had transformed to one she couldn't immediately interpret, something between wonder and devastation. 10 years, he said finally. "I have a 10-year-old child I've never known. I tried to tell you when I first found out," Alana reminded him gently. "When your people shut me down, I made the decision to raise Jordan alone." "Jordan," he repeated the name, testing it. "Boy or girl?" Jordan identifies as non-binary. They use they/them pronouns. Ethan absorbed this with a thoughtful nod, and they're brilliant at coding. Already creating work that impressed me before I had any idea. He trailed off, overwhelmed. "They inherited your aptitude for technology," Alana confirmed. "It's been evident since they were very young." She opened the envelope, removing a faded hospital bracelet. "This is from the day Jordan was born. I kept it in case someday they wanted proof of where they came from." Ethan took the small plastic band with reverent care, fingers tracing the printed name and date. "May I meet them? Properly? Before the showcase." The request carried none of the entitlement Alana had feared. No demands for rights or accusations of concealment. Just the simple desire of a father to know his child. "Yes," she said, "but carefully. Jordan doesn't know about you yet. I need to prepare them first." "Of course." Relief softened his features. "Whatever approach you think best." They sat in silence for several moments, the enormity of the revelation settling between them. Around them, park visitors continued their normal activities, unaware of the life-changing conversation unfolding on an ordinary bench. "I would have been there," Ethan said finally, his voice rough with emotion. "If I'd known. For both of you." Alana believed him. The realization unlocked something she'd held tight for a decade. The fear that Jordan's father had never wanted them. "There's one more thing you should know," she said. "Jordan's project for the showcase? It's an adaptive learning algorithm for children with processing differences. They developed it because a classmate in Atlanta struggled with traditional teaching methods." Pride and wonder transformed Ethan's expression. "They created technology to help others." "Yes," Alana confirmed. "That's who your child is." Ethan looked down at the hospital bracelet still cradled in his palm, then back to Alana with eyes that held a decade of missed moments. "Thank you," he said simply, "for raising a person I already admire. And for finding the courage to tell me now. What secrets do you carry in your DNA? Would you recognize parts of yourself in someone you've never met? Your blood carries truths that cannot stay buried." The small cafe near their apartment felt like neutral ground, casual enough for a weekend breakfast, but public enough to keep the conversation contained. Alana had chosen it carefully for the first meeting between Jordan and their father. "So this person we're meeting is connected to the coding program?" Jordan asked, fidgeting with a napkin. Their natural curiosity had immediately surfaced when Alana explained someone important wanted to meet them. "Yes, but this isn't about the showcase," Alana replied carefully. "It's about something more personal." Jordan's quick mind immediately sensed the undercurrent. "Mom? What's going on?" Alana took a deep breath. She'd rehearsed this conversation countless times over the past 3 days, seeking the perfect words to explain a decade of choices. "You know, I've always told you that your father and I weren't right for each other, that the relationship ended before I knew I was pregnant." Jordan nodded slowly. "You said he moved away before you could tell him about me." "That wasn't entirely accurate," Alana admitted. "The truth is more complicated. Your father never knew about you because when I tried to tell him, I couldn't reach him directly. I received legal documents from his company instead." Confusion creased Jordan's forehead. "His company? Was he some kind of businessman?" "He is, yes." Alana reached for her child's hand across the table. "Jordan, your father is Ethan Wallace." Silence. Complete stillness as Jordan processed the name. eyes widening with disbelief. Ethan Wallace. Like the Ethan Wallace? The person running the coding program? The one who? They stopped abruptly, connecting dots with the rapid-fire processing that characterized their thinking. The one who said my code reminded him of his early work. Alana nodded. Yes, that's not possible. Jordan's voice wavered between shock and budding anger. You worked as a maid for his company 10 years ago. He's a billionaire. That doesn't happen. It rarely does, Alana acknowledged. But it did happen. Once. And you were the result. Jordan stood suddenly, chair scraping back. All these years, you let me think my father was just some regular guy who didn't know I existed. But it's Ethan Wallace? The person whose technology I've been studying? Whose coding structure I've been learning? I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner, Alana said, keeping her voice steady despite the pain in Jordan's expression. I was trying to protect you. From what? From knowing where my abilities came from? From understanding why I could see patterns others couldn't? The hurt in Jordan's voice cut deep. Does he know about me? He does now. I told him 3 days ago. After the coding program selected me? After he'd already seen my work? Jordan's analytical mind was assembling the timeline with perfect clarity. Did he recognize something in my code? Is that why I'm a finalist? No, Alana assured them quickly. Your project earned its place before he knew any connection. He's as shocked by this discovery as you are. Jordan sank back into their chair, overwhelmed. And he wants to meet me? Why? After all this time? Because he just learned you exist, Alana explained gently. And because he's already impressed by who you are, completely separate from knowing you're his child. Jordan fell silent, processing. Alana recognized the expression, the same focused calculation she'd seen on Ethan's face when solving complex problems. He's coming here? Today? Yes. In about 15 minutes. But only if you want to meet him. If you need more time, I'll call and reschedule. Jordan stared at the table, mind visibly racing. Finally, they looked up with determined eyes that mirrored Ethan's exactly. I want to meet him. Exactly 14 minutes later, Ethan entered the cafe alone. He'd honored Alana's request to come without security or assistance, dressed casually in jeans and a simple sweater to attract minimal attention. His eyes found them immediately, his step faltering slightly at the first clear view of Jordan, his child, the living bridge between himself and Alana. Even prepared for the resemblance, the reality struck him visibly. Alana rose to greet him, providing an anchor in the emotionally charged moment. Ethan, thank you for coming. He nodded, eyes still fixed on Jordan, who had remained seated, expression carefully composed. Jordan, Alana said gently, this is Ethan Wallace. Ethan extended his hand, the gesture deliberately formal, respectful of boundaries. Hello, Jordan. I'm very glad to meet you properly. Jordan stood, accepting the handshake with surprising steadiness. Hello. Please sit, Alana urged, acutely aware of curious glances from other patrons who had recognized Ethan. The three settled at the table, an impossible family constellation finally aligned after a decade of separation. Silence stretched between them, heavy with unasked questions. Your coding project is extraordinary, Ethan said finally, finding professional ground as a starting point. The adaptive learning algorithm shows remarkable intuition about human cognitive patterns. I built it for my friend Darius, Jordan replied, voice gaining confidence when discussing their work. His brain processes information differently. Traditional educational software doesn't account for that. That's exactly the kind of problem solving we need more of, Ethan said, genuine admiration evident. Seeing technology as a tool for human connection, not replacement. Jordan studied him openly, searching for reflections of themselves. Mom says you didn't know about me until 3 days ago. The direct approach, another trait shared between them. Ethan nodded. That's correct. If I had known, he paused, choosing words carefully. If I had known, my life would have taken a very different path. Would you have married my mom? The question carried all the bluntness of youth. Alana began to intervene, but Ethan answered before she could. I would have tried to, he said honestly. Your mother is one of the most remarkable people I've ever met, but she might not have accepted. Our worlds were very different. They still are, Jordan observed. Externally, yes, but fundamentally. Ethan glanced at Alana before continuing. I've found that genuine connections transcend circumstance. A server approached to take their order, providing a momentary reprieve from the intensity. After requesting simple breakfast items, they resumed their careful conversation. Do you have other kids? Jordan asked, the question clearly important to them. No, Ethan replied. You're my only child. Something in Jordan's expression eased slightly at this information. Did you ever wonder if you might have a kid somewhere? Did you think about that possibility? The question revealed vulnerability beneath Jordan's composed exterior. The need to know if their existence had ever entered their father's consciousness. I did, Ethan admitted, especially after relationships ended. But I never pursued finding out. That was a mistake on my part. Jordan nodded, processing this. I've read everything about you online. Your coding approach, your business philosophy. People call you a visionary. People exaggerate. Ethan said, humility surprising both Alana and Jordan. I've been fortunate that my way of seeing problems aligned with technological needs. But that's just one kind of vision. He looked directly at Jordan. Your project shows a different kind, seeing human needs clearly and building technology around them, not the other way around. That's much rarer and more valuable. The genuine praise reached Jordan in a way generic acknowledgement couldn't have. Alana watched as her child's defensive posture softened slightly. I have questions, Jordan said finally. A lot of them. I imagine you do, Ethan replied. And I promise to answer them honestly, even when the answers aren't flattering to me. I want to know everything, Jordan specified. Not just the good parts, the real story. Ethan glanced at Alana, a silent question passing between them. She nodded slightly, permission to share their complicated history truthfully. The real story begins with your mother cleaning my office late one night. Ethan started. Noticing for the first time that the people maintaining my world had their own complete lives and dreams that had nothing to do with me. As he spoke, Jordan leaned forward almost imperceptibly, hunger for connection visible beneath careful reserve. Alana watched father and child finding common ground in straightforward truth, another trait they shared without knowing it. The meeting that had begun with tension gradually transformed into something unexpected. The tentative foundation of understanding between three people linked by biology, circumstance, and choices both deliberate and accidental. Not family yet, but no longer complete strangers. How long can chemistry and history stay contained? When does silence become its own form of betrayal? The search history on Jordan's laptop told its own story. DNA inheritance patterns. How much DNA do you get from each parent? Famous people who discovered unknown parents. Ethan Wallace childhood photos. How to tell if someone is your biological parent. In the week following their first meeting with Ethan, Jordan had become a detective of their own genetic history, methodically comparing physical features, personality traits, and intellectual patterns. Their bedroom wall now featured a carefully constructed timeline. Ethan's major life events on one side, Alana's on the other, with their own birth marked at the intersection. Alana observed the investigation with a mixture of concern and relief. Jordan had always processed complex emotions through research and analysis. The scientific approach created emotional distance, allowing them to examine the revelation of Ethan's identity without being overwhelmed by it. Mom, Jordan called from their room. Can you come here for a minute? Alana found her child seated cross-legged on the bed, laptop open to a split-screen display. Ethan's high school yearbook photo beside a recent picture of Jordan. Look at our eyes, Jordan said, pointing to the screen. Not just the color, but the shape, and the way our left eyebrow arches slightly higher than the right when we concentrate. The resemblance was undeniable. Beyond the physical similarities, both faces carried the same focused intensity, the same analytical gaze. I see it, Alana acknowledged, sitting beside Jordan on the bed. You've always had his eyes. Did you notice back then? When I was born, immediately, Alana admitted. It was the first thing I saw when they placed you in my arms. Jordan nodded, absorbing this. He wants to meet again tomorrow. Just us this time. He texted me directly. This was news to Alana. And how do you feel about that? Confused, Jordan admitted. Part of me is still angry. At both of you, honestly. But another part. They trailed off, struggling to articulate complex feelings. Another part wants to know him, Alana finished gently. Yeah, Jordan closed the laptop. Is that weird? To want to know someone who didn't know I existed until a week ago. Not weird at all. He's half of where you come from. He said he wants to show me his first coding lab. The garage where he built the original Wallace AI engine. The intimate offer surprised Alana. Ethan rarely allowed anyone into his private spaces, especially the almost mythical garage workspace where his empire had begun. That sounds like a meaningful gesture, she said carefully. Will you come too? The question revealed vulnerability beneath Jordan's composed exterior. For all their analytical approach, this remained an emotionally charged journey. If you want me there, absolutely. But it might also be valuable for you two to have some time alone together. Jordan considered this. I think I need to do this part alone, to see who he is without you as a buffer. Alana nodded, pride mixing with a bittersweet recognition of her child's growing independence. I trust your judgment. The next day, Ethan's driver arrived precisely at the agreed time. Jordan emerged from their bedroom, wearing their most sophisticated outfit, dark jeans and a buttoned shirt rather than their usual t-shirts and hoodies. The deliberate choice revealed how seriously they took this meeting. Text me if you need anything, Alana said, straightening Jordan's collar in a gesture more reassuring to herself than necessary for her meticulously neat child. I will. Jordan hesitated at the door, an unusual uncertainty crossing their features. Mom, thank you for not keeping this from me once we moved back to California. You could have. The simple acknowledgement eased something in Alana's chest. Recognition that despite the complicated history, she'd made the right decision in revealing the truth. Hours later, when Jordan returned, their expression had transformed. Energy radiated from them as they burst through the apartment door, eyes bright with excitement. Mom, his lab is incredible. He has prototype systems that won't be released for years, and he showed me everything. Everything. Words tumbled out in a rush of enthusiasm. And guess what? The pattern recognition approach I used in my project, he uses the exact same methodology in his advanced AI systems. Not similar, identical. That's amazing, Alana said, struck by Jordan's animation. He said it was like watching his own brain work from the outside. That's why my project caught his attention before he knew who I was. Jordan paced the small living room, unable to contain their excitement. He wanted me to join the advanced development program at Wallace Tech this summer. Not as his kid, he was very clear about that, but because of my abilities. Alana took a deep breath, processing the implications. That's a significant opportunity. It's more than that. Jordan stopped pacing, expression suddenly serious. He showed me his medical records, Mom. His medical records? What? They pulled out their phone, showing Alana a photo taken in Ethan's legendary garage workspace. Father and child standing side by side before a wall of complex diagrams, identical expressions of focused concentration on their faces. The resemblance was unmistakable, the connection between them visible even through a simple photograph. He asked if he would join us for dinner next week, Jordan added. All three of us. He wants to talk about the showcase and other things. What other things? Jordan's expression turned thoughtful. I think he wants to be part of our lives, Mom. Really part of them. Not just as my mentor or your former, whatever you were to each other, but as family. The word hung in the air between them. Family, with all its complex implications. Alana had built their life as a complete unit of two, independent and self-sufficient. Expanding that definition would reshape everything they'd known. And how would you feel about that? She asked carefully. Jordan considered the question with characteristic thoroughness. I think I want to know him, they said finally. Not just as Ethan Wallace, tech genius, but as the other half of where I come from. Is that okay? Alana pulled her child close, heart full. Of course it's okay. Your history belongs to you, Jordan, including the parts that connect to him. When did you first realize your parents were keeping secrets? What truth would completely rewrite your understanding of who you are? Dinner at Ethan's home was nothing like Alana had imagined during rare moments of speculation over the years. Instead of the cold, modern mansion depicted in occasional magazine features, they arrived at a surprisingly modest craftsman-style house nestled in the hills above the bay. The structure was beautiful but understated, with warm wood accents and large windows showcasing the natural landscape. "This isn't what I expected," Alana admitted as Ethan welcomed them inside. "The place in the magazines is my official residence," he explained. "This is where I actually live." The distinction spoke volumes about the public versus private versions of himself, a boundary he maintained carefully in most aspects of his life. Jordan moved through the space with natural curiosity, examining bookshelves filled with technical volumes and classic literature, lingering over framed photographs of Ethan's parents and early company milestones. "You cook?" they asked, noticing the well-used kitchen where ingredients sat prepped on the counter. "Badly, but enthusiastically," Ethan admitted with a self-deprecating smile. "I hope you like pasta. It's only a few things I can make without embarrassing myself completely." The casual admission that the brilliant innovator struggled with everyday skills eased some of the evening's underlying tension. They settled into a rhythm that felt surprisingly natural. Ethan cooking, while Jordan peppered him with questions about his early career, Alana contributing occasional context from her own recollections of that era. Over dinner, conversation flowed more easily than any of them had anticipated. Jordan dominated the exchange, hunger for knowledge about their father evident in each question. Ethan answered with unexpected openness, sharing failures alongside successes, personal struggles alongside professional triumphs. The first version of the pattern recognition algorithm crashed spectacularly, he told Jordan, who listened with rapt attention. "Took down the entire system and nearly cost us our first major client. I spent 3 days without sleep rebuilding it from scratch. That's how I felt when my school project deleted itself 2 hours before the deadline," Jordan replied, eyes bright with recognition of shared experience. Alana observed their interaction with complex emotions. The connection between them was undeniable. Two minds that functioned in remarkably similar ways, finding recognition in each other. She felt simultaneously grateful for Jordan's evident joy in this discovery and strangely outside, witnessing a bond she couldn't fully share. After dinner, Ethan suggested moving to the living room where a fire crackled in a stone fireplace. The setting felt almost deliberately neutral, neither his tech headquarters nor their apartment, but a middle ground where 3 people navigating complicated relationships could speak honestly. "I want to discuss the showcase," Ethan began once they were settled. "It's 2 weeks away, and we need to address some practical considerations." The shift to business matters created a momentary pause in the evening's warmth. "What considerations?" Alana asked, immediately alert to potential complications. "Media attention," Ethan replied. "The showcase receives significant coverage, particularly the main stage presentations. Jordan will be in the spotlight. And if anyone notices the resemblance between us," Jordan concluded, "questions will follow." "Exactly." Ethan leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "I believe we have 3 options. First, we could try to minimize your interaction publicly, though that's increasingly difficult given your finalist status. Second, we can prepare a statement acknowledging our relationship and release it before the event. Or third, we can say nothing and deal with any speculation as it arises." The methodical presentation of options reflected his approach to business problems. Clear, logical alternatives laid out for consideration. "What would you prefer?" Alana asked, curious about his perspective. "Honesty," Ethan answered without hesitation. "I've spent my life controlling narratives, managing public perception. It's exhausting and ultimately hollow." He turned to Jordan. "But this affects your life most directly. You're entering a field where my name carries weight, for better or worse. Being publicly identified as my child will change how people perceive your accomplishments." Jordan nodded, understanding the implications immediately. "They might think I got opportunities because of you, not because of my work." "Yes. Or they might put unfair expectations on you to be exactly like me." "But hiding it feels wrong too," Jordan observed. "Like we're ashamed of the connection." "Which I'm not," Ethan said firmly. "Not in the slightest." The clarity of his statement, the absence of any hesitation, touched something in Alana she'd protected for years. Whatever else had happened between them, Ethan wanted to acknowledge Jordan publicly, without reservation. "What about your company?" she asked. "Your board of directors? Won't this create complications?" "Undoubtedly." Ethan smiled slightly. "But I stopped making decisions based on board approval years ago. My personal life is my own, even when it involves a child you didn't know about until 2 weeks ago." Especially then, his gaze held her steadily. "Some things matter more than stock prices or public opinion." Jordan, who had been quietly processing the exchange, spoke up decisively. "I want people to know, not because I want attention or advantages, but because it's the truth. I'm tired of partial stories." The statement carried surprising weight coming from a 10-year-old, yet reflected maturity beyond their years. "Then we'll prepare a statement," Ethan agreed. "Simple, straightforward facts without unnecessary details. Would that be acceptable to you, Alana?" She considered carefully, aware that this decision would permanently alter their carefully constructed life. Once acknowledged publicly as Ethan Wallace's child, Jordan would never again experience the relative anonymity they'd known. "Yes," she said finally, "but I have conditions." "Of course." Jordan's education and development remain under my primary guidance. No boarding schools, no specialized academies unless Jordan specifically wants them. Normal childhood experiences remain the priority. Ethan nodded, agreed, and no financial entanglements that come with strings attached. No trust funds that dictate life choices or career paths. "That was never my intention," Ethan assured her. "Support without control." And finally, Alana continued, "Our living situation remains independent. Jordan needs stability, not shuttling between different worlds." Something flickered across Ethan's expression, disappointment, perhaps a recognition of necessary boundaries. "I understand." Jordan, who had been following the exchange with keen attention, interjected. "Don't I get a say in these conditions?" Both adults turned to them, momentarily surprised by the challenge. "You're right," Alana acknowledged. "This affects your life most directly." "I want to know him," Jordan said simply. "Not just occasionally or under specific conditions. I want the chance to build a real relationship." The straightforward declaration held no manipulation or childish plea, just honest desire for connection. "We'll find a right balance," Ethan promised. Together, as the evening drew to a close, Jordan excused themselves to examine Ethan's book collection more closely, leaving the adults momentarily alone by the fire. "Thank you," Ethan said quietly, "for raising them to be exactly who they are, for making this conversation possible." Alana nodded, emotions too complex for simple expression. "They're the best of both of us, I think. Your mind, my determination, and a heart that's entirely their own." In that moment of shared recognition, the years of separation seemed briefly less important than the remarkable person they had, separately and together, brought into the world. If you discovered someone powerful owed you recognition, would you demand it publicly or negotiate privately? What does real justice look like? The press release arrived in Alana's email for final approval 3 days before the scheduled announcement. The language was simple and direct. Wallace Technologies founder and CEO Ethan Wallace, 43, today confirmed that Jordan Ellis, 10, a finalist in the company's Young Innovator Showcase, is his biological child. Jordan's mother, Alana Ellis, 37, and Wallace have maintained a cordial relationship focused on supporting Jordan's development. The family requests privacy as they navigate this public acknowledgement of their connection. Jordan's participation in the showcase will proceed based solely on the technical merits of their work. Alana read it twice, searching for hidden implications or corporate spin. Finding none, she forwarded it to Ethan with a single word: approved. His response came minutes later: thank you. Public statement tomorrow at 9 a.m. Are you both ready? The question carried weight beyond the immediate announcement. Was she ready for their carefully constructed life to transform overnight? Was Jordan prepared for the scrutiny that would follow? Before she could reply, Jordan appeared beside her, reading over her shoulder. Is that the statement? Yes. Your father wants to know if we're ready. Jordan considered this with characteristic thoughtfulness. Not really, they admitted. But waiting won't make it easier. Wisdom beyond their years. Another trait that reminded Alana daily of the unique person her child had become. I'm meeting with my communications team this afternoon. Ethan texted. Would you both join us for dinner afterward? 7 p.m. at my house. Alana glanced at Jordan, who nodded eagerly. We'll be there, she replied. That evening, as their rideshare approached Ethan's home, Alana noticed unusual activity. Additional security personnel at the entrance, cars with darkened windows parked nearby. Inside, they found Ethan in conversation with a professional-looking woman whom he introduced as Catherine Morales, his head of communications. I was just reviewing probable media scenarios with Ethan, Catherine explained, extending her hand to Alana. We've prepared responses to the most likely questions, but it would help to get your input as well. The inclusion surprised Alana. She'd expected to be presented with decisions rather than consulted. What kind of questions are you anticipating? Catherine glanced at Jordan, a silent question about appropriateness. Jordan should hear this too, Alana said firmly. They need to understand what's coming. Catherine nodded, pulling up a document on her tablet. The primary narrative angles we expect are billionaire's secret child focused on the revelation aspect, rags to riches emphasizing the economic contrast between your backgrounds, and technology dynasty highlighting Jordan's inherited aptitude. The clinical breakdown of their personal story into media narratives felt strange yet necessary. This was the reality of Ethan's world. Personal matters filtered through public interest and corporate implications. There will also be invasive questions about your past relationship, Catherine continued, addressing both Ethan and Alana, and speculation about why the connection remained private until now. We tell the truth, Ethan stated firmly. Alana and I had a brief relationship. When it ended, I was unaware of her pregnancy. We reconnected recently when Jordan entered the coding program, and I learned about her child. Simple facts without unnecessary details. Alana appreciated his straightforward approach. No attempts to rewrite history or craft a more palatable version of events. And questions about future arrangements? Catherine prompted. We're focused on supporting Jordan's development and building a healthy family dynamic, Ethan replied. Beyond that, our arrangements remain private. After Catherine departed, the three of them shared a quiet dinner. Jordan, unusually subdued, pushed food around their plate without eating much. Second thoughts? Ethan asked gently. Jordan looked up, expression troubled. What if people only care about my project because I'm your kid? What if they think I didn't earn my place? The vulnerability in the question revealed Jordan's deepest fear, that their achievements would be dismissed as nepotism rather than recognized as genuine talent. Some people will think exactly that. Ethan acknowledged, his honesty refreshing in its directness. Others will hold you to impossible standards because of our connection. Neither perspective is fair, but both are inevitable. Then how do I prove myself? Jordan asked. By continuing to do exceptional work, Ethan replied. Excellence speaks for itself eventually, even when people's preconceptions try to drown it out. He reached across the table, placing his hand beside Jordan's without quite touching, respecting boundaries while offering connection. I faced something similar when I started out, he continued. My father was a well-known physicist. People assumed my opportunities came through his connections rather than my abilities. How did you handle it? Jordan asked, genuinely curious. Poorly at first, Ethan admitted with a self-deprecating smile. I tried to distance myself from him completely, rejected his support, changed my approach to be deliberately different from his. It was exhausting and ultimately pointless. What changed? I realized that fighting against who I was, including who I came from, wasted energy I could put toward creating something valuable. Ethan's expression grew thoughtful. The people whose opinions truly matter can recognize genuine innovation regardless of where it originates. The exchange fascinated Alana. Ethan speaking to their child not as a typical parent, but as someone who had navigated similar challenges. His perspective offered Jordan something she couldn't provide: understanding of the specific weight of inherited expectation in a field where names carried significant meaning. Later that evening, as they prepared to leave, Ethan handed Jordan a small box. "I wanted you to have this before tomorrow's announcement." Jordan opened it to reveal a sleek smartwatch unlike any commercially available model. "This is a prototype," Ethan explained, "one of only 5 in existence. It has features specifically designed for minds that process information the way ours do. Pattern recognition tools, adaptive sensory filters for overwhelming environments, specialized organization systems." Jordan turned the device over in their hands, immediately grasping its significance. "You made this for yourself?" "Initially, yes. To help manage the way my brain works in a world designed for different cognitive patterns." Ethan's expression softened. "I never imagined I'd pass those patterns to someone else. That there would be another person who might benefit from tools designed for my specific needs." The gift transcended its material value, a recognition of their shared neurological makeup, an acknowledgement that Jordan's differences were not only understood but valued. "Thank you," Jordan said simply, already examining the interface with intuitive understanding. As they left, Alana noticed Ethan watching them from the doorway, his expression a complex mixture of pride and something that looked almost like longing. The distance between them, not just physical space but the years of separation, seemed simultaneously vast and paper-thin. In the car heading home, Jordan broke their thoughtful silence. "Mom, I think he's lonely." The observation, delivered with typical directness, caught Alana by surprise. "What makes you say that?" "His house. It's beautiful but empty. No personal photos except of his parents. No evidence of friends or relationships." Jordan turned the new watch over in their hands. "He builds amazing things, but doesn't seem to have people to share them with." The insight revealed Jordan's perceptiveness about emotional landscapes, not just technological ones. "Building connections with people is different from building technology," Alana said carefully. "Some people find one easier than the other." "He's trying with us, though," Jordan observed. "It matters to him." "Yes, it does. Does it matter to you too?" Jordan's question carried no judgment, just genuine curiosity. Alana considered her answer carefully. "His connection to you matters to me because it matters to you. Beyond that." She paused, uncertain how to articulate the complex emotions surrounding Ethan's reemergence in their lives. "You liked him once," Jordan pointed out. "Enough to make me." The simplified perspective of a child, reducing complicated adult dynamics to their most basic elements. Yet there was truth in it. Beneath the circumstances and power imbalances, there had been genuine connection. "It was complicated," Alana replied finally. "And it was a long time ago." Jordan nodded, accepting the partial answer. As they neared their apartment, they asked one final question. "After tomorrow, everything changes, doesn't it?" "Yes," Alana admitted, "but we'll face it together. All 3 of us in our own way." "What costs more, public vindication or private peace? Would you sacrifice potential reconciliation for the truth to be widely known?" The statement, released exactly as planned at 9 a.m., distributed to major media outlets simultaneously with a post on Wallace Technologies' official channels. By 9:07, Alana's phone began ringing with calls from numbers she didn't recognize. By 9:15, reporters had appeared outside their apartment building. "Don't answer any calls from unknown numbers," Ethan advised via text. "My security team is en route to escort you both to a secure location until the initial frenzy subsides." Alana stood at the window, watching the growing media presence below with a mixture of disbelief and resignation. The theoretical understanding that their lives would change had now collided with concrete reality. Mom. Jordan appeared beside her, peering down at the gathering reporters. There are a lot of them. Yes, there are. Are they going to follow us everywhere now? The genuine concern in Jordan's voice grounded Alana immediately. This wasn't about her discomfort or Ethan's public image. It was about protecting their child from unwanted exposure. Not for long, she assured them. Your father's security team is coming to help us. This intensity won't last. He thinks of everything, doesn't he? Jordan observed, their tone difficult to interpret. Before Alana could respond, her phone chimed with a message from Ethan. Security in place. Black SUV at your back entrance. They'll bring you to my house where we can regroup. 20 minutes later, they were escorted through the building's service exit and into a waiting vehicle with tinted windows. The driver, a professional security specialist, navigated efficiently through side streets to avoid pursuing media vehicles. I've never been in a car chase before, Jordan commented with unexpected humor as they watched a persistent photographer's motorcycle fall behind. Ethan was waiting when they arrived at his home, concern evident in his expression as he ushered them inside. The house had transformed overnight into a command center. Additional security personnel monitored the grounds, while a communications team worked from laptops in what had previously been the dining room. I'm sorry about this, he said, leading them to a private section of the house away from the activity. The response has been more intense than even Catherine anticipated. It's fine, Alana assured him, though the disruption to their normal lives was anything but fine. How long do you expect this to continue? The acute phase? A few days, but there will be ongoing interest. Ethan ran a hand through his hair, a rare gesture of stress from someone usually so composed. I've arranged for additional security for both of you until things normalize. I have work on Monday, Alana pointed out. Jordan has school. We can't just hide away. I know. The security will be discreet but present. He turned to Jordan, who had been observing the exchange with typical analytical focus. How are you holding up? I'm okay, they replied thoughtfully. It's interesting, actually, watching how information spreads, how quickly people form narratives based on minimal facts. The mature observation drew a smile from Ethan. Always the analyst. That's exactly right. People are already constructing stories about us with almost no actual information. What kind of stories? Jordan asked. Ethan glanced at Alana, silently checking boundaries. They should know what's being said, she acknowledged. Better from us than overheard or discovered online. Ethan nodded, addressing Jordan directly. Some stories are focusing on the billionaire discovers secret heir angle, painting it as a dramatic revelation. Others are more interested in your mother's perspective, how she raised you independently despite challenging circumstances. And some are undoubtedly trying to cast me as either a gold digger or a victim, Alana added dryly, depending on their preferred narrative. That's not fair, Jordan protested. They don't know anything about us. That's exactly what makes speculation so appealing, Ethan explained. People fill gaps with whatever serves their existing worldview. The house phone rang, interrupting their conversation. Ethan excused himself to answer, returning moments later with a troubled expression. That was my mother, he said. She saw the announcement on television. She's surprised, to put it mildly. The reminder that Jordan had grandparents who knew nothing about their existence until today added another layer of complexity to the situation. Ethan's parents, wealthy, socially connected figures in their own right, were now part of Jordan's extended family. Does she want to meet me? Jordan asked directly. Very much so, Ethan confirmed. She's actually on her way here now. Alana felt a flash of anxiety at this development. Meeting Ethan's mother hadn't been part of today's expected challenges. I should have consulted you first, Ethan acknowledged, reading her expression. I apologize. She was quite insistent. It's okay, Alana replied, though uncertainty colored her voice. Jordan should meet their grandmother. Jordan, who had been quiet, spoke up with unexpected clarity. I want to meet her, but I need you both with me. And I don't want to be treated like some kind of science experiment or circus attraction. The mature request reflected their understanding of the complex dynamics at play. Ethan nodded appreciatively. I promise to ensure appropriate boundaries, he assured them. My mother can be formidable, but she respects directness. An hour later, Eleanor Wallace arrived, a striking woman in her 70s whose elegant appearance and commanding presence immediately filled the room. Her gaze went directly to Jordan, assessing with undisguised interest. "Well," she said finally, "there's no question you're Ethan's child. You have his exact expression when evaluating a new situation." Jordan straightened slightly, meeting her gaze without hesitation. "And you have the same analytical eye. Genetics are fascinating that way." A smile touched Eleanor's lips at the direct response. "Indeed they are." She turned to Alana, extending her hand. "Ms. Ellis, I understand I have you to thank for raising my grandchild without any support from our family." The statement carried complexity. Acknowledgement implied criticism of her son, and something like respect, all layered together. "Jordan has never lacked what matters most," Alana replied, accepting the handshake with equal firmness. "Clearly not," Eleanor agreed, attention returning to Jordan. "Ethan tells me you're quite the coding prodigy. That's definitely from our side of the family. His father would have been fascinated by your work." "Would have been?" Jordan questioned. "My husband passed away 3 years ago," Eleanor explained. "He never knew about you. That's Ethan's loss as much as yours. His father would have been an excellent grandfather." The statement carried no accusation, just simple fact. Ethan's expression tightened momentarily at the mention of his father. "Mom," he interjected gently, "this is all very new for everyone." "Yes, and whose fault is that?" Eleanor replied, though without real heat. 10 years, Ethan. 10 years this child has been in the world without our knowledge. That responsibility is shared. Alana intervened, unwilling to let the blame rest entirely on Ethan. Neither of us handled the situation perfectly. Eleanor studied her with new appreciation. Diplomatic and protective. Good qualities in a mother. She turned back to Jordan. "Now then, I understand you've created some revolutionary coding approach that has my son quite impressed. Tell me about it." "Don't simplify. I taught advanced mathematics for 40 years before retiring." Jordan's eyes lit up at the invitation to discuss their work without the usual need to make it accessible for non-technical listeners. As they launched into an explanation of their project's architecture, Eleanor listened with genuine interest, asking pointed questions that revealed her own technical background. Watching them interact, Alana felt unexpected emotion rise in her throat. This was Jordan's heritage too. This sharp-minded woman whose intelligence had clearly influenced Ethan's own gifts. For all the complexities and challenges of their situation, her child was discovering connections that added richness to their understanding of themselves. Ethan moved to stand beside her, voice low. "Thank you for this, for allowing these connections despite everything that happened between us." The simple gratitude carried weight, acknowledgement of the choice she'd made to allow these relationships to form despite the complications they created. "Jordan deserves to know where they come from," Alana replied. "All of it, not just the parts that fit neatly into our previous life." Across the room, Jordan was sketching something on a tablet, Eleanor leaning in to observe with focused attention. The easy intellectual rapport between them transcended the awkwardness of their circumstances. "They belong in both worlds," Ethan observed quietly. "Yours and mine. They navigate the transition more gracefully than either of us." The observation held truth that settled something in Alana's heart. Whatever challenges lay ahead in balancing these newly connected lives, Jordan possessed the resilience and clarity to forge their own path forward. What would you say if you had 10 seconds to change your life forever? What truths deserve a spotlight, no matter the cost? One speech can destroy everything you've built. 6 months after the public revelation that shocked the tech world, a new normal had gradually emerged for the unlikely family created by circumstance, choice, and biology. The Wallace Young Innovators Showcase had proceeded despite the media frenzy, with Jordan's project winning the top award based on technical merit alone, a panel of independent judges unconnected to Wallace Technologies making the final decision. The victory had silenced many who questioned whether Jordan's recognition stemmed from talent or relationship. Now, on a crisp autumn evening, Alana stood in the backyard of a house that represented their newest adaptation. Not Ethan's private residence, nor their former apartment, but a comfortable home in a neighborhood halfway between neutral territory that belonged to none of them individually and all of them collectively. The co-parenting house, Jordan had dubbed it with typical directness, where everybody has space, but nobody has to choose sides. The arrangement had emerged as a practical solution to the complex logistics of shared parenting. 3 days each week, this house became their shared base, Jordan having their own room, Ethan and Alana maintaining separate spaces while sharing common areas. The remainder of the week, Jordan alternated between Alana's new apartment and occasional overnight stays at Ethan's home. Not traditional by any definition, but functional in ways that prioritize Jordan's needs while respecting adult boundaries. Hot chocolate? Ethan appeared beside her, offering a steaming mug. The evening had turned cool as sunset approached, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink above the garden Jordan had planted with Eleanor's guidance. "Thank you." Alana accepted the drink, appreciating the easy domesticity that had developed between them. Not romance, but a partnership focused on Jordan's well-being. "Where's the architect of all this?" she asked, referring to their child. "Video call with your mother," Ethan replied with a smile. Apparently, Rosa has strong opinions about the science fair project. The mention of Alana's mother highlighted another unexpected development, the gradual integration of their extended families. Rosa and Eleanor had formed an unlikely alliance, united by shared interest in their grandchild despite vastly different backgrounds and life experiences. "They'll be arguing about methodology for hours," Alana predicted, knowing her mother's passionate approach to scientific questions. Jordan thrives on the debate. Ethan leaned against the porch railing, his posture more relaxed than she'd ever seen in their early encounters. They need that intellectual challenge. The observation carried no judgment, just recognition of their child's unique needs, something they've both grown to understand more deeply through their shared parenting. The school called today, Alana mentioned. They're recommending advanced placement for next year. No surprise there. Jordan's processing level is years beyond grade curriculum. Ethan paused, considering. "How do you feel about it?" The question reflected their evolved approach. Major decisions discussed together, multiple perspectives considered, Jordan's input central to the process. "Academically, they're ready," Alana acknowledged. "Socially, I'm less certain. Being known as both academically advanced and Ethan Wallace's kid creates a challenging dynamic with peers." "Valid concern." Ethan nodded thoughtfully. "Perhaps we look at supplemental programs instead of full grade advancement, maintain social connections while addressing academic needs." The collaborative problem-solving had become their strongest connection. Two people with different perspectives united by genuine concern for their child's development. "That seems reasonable. We should get Jordan's thoughts before deciding." Comfortable silence settled between them as they watched the sunset deepen. In the months since the public revelation, media interest had gradually faded to occasional mentions rather than constant scrutiny. Ethan's security team still maintained a presence, but with decreasing visibility. Life had found a new rhythm, different from before, but increasingly stable. "I received an interesting offer today," Ethan said after a while. The National Institute for Cognitive Development wants to establish a research center focused on alternative learning approaches for students with non-standard processing patterns. "Like Jordan," Alana noted. "Like Jordan," he confirmed. "They're interested in creating adaptive technologies similar to what I've developed for my own use, but aimed at educational applications." "That sounds worthwhile. They want both of us involved." Ethan turned to face her directly. "You because of your experience raising a child with these patterns without technological intervention. Me for the technical perspective." Surprise registered en Alana's face. "Both of us? As what consultants?" "Initially. Eventually, they'd want more substantial involvement, particularly from you. Your background in healthcare administration combined with personal experience makes you uniquely qualified." The proposal represented something unexpected. Recognition of her expertise, separate from either her connection to Ethan or her role as Jordan's mother. "I need to think about it," she said carefully. "Review the details." "Of course." Ethan smiled slightly. "I told him you'd say exactly that. Thorough analysis before decisions. It's one of your strengths." The casual compliment landed differently than it might have months earlier. Less charged, more genuine appreciation between people who had developed mutual respect. Jordan appeared at the door, joining them on the porch. "Grandma says to tell you both that you're wrong about the experimental design," they announced with a grin. "She's sending detailed corrections." "Of course she is," Alana laughed. Jordan settled between them at the railing, looking out at the garden they'd created. "Can we have dinner outside tonight? It's not too cold yet." "Good idea," Ethan agreed. "I'll set up the table." As he moved inside to gather supplies, Jordan turned to Alana with the direct gaze that always preceded important questions. "Mom, are you happy with how things are now?" The question caught her by surprise, simple yet profound in its implications. Was she happy with this complex arrangement? This blending of lives that none of them had anticipated? "I am," she realized, the answer emerging with unexpected certainty. Not because it's perfect or what I planned, but because it honors what matters most. Which is truth, Alana said simply. Living honestly, even when it's complicated. Creating space for you to know all parts of yourself and your history. Jordan nodded, processing this with typical thoroughness. "And you and Dad? Are you friends now?" The question touched on something still evolving between the adults in this unusual family configuration. "We're co-parents," Alana replied carefully. "Partners in raising you. That's our primary connection." "But not just that," Jordan observed with characteristic perception. "You talk even when I'm not around. I've seen you laughing together when you think I'm not paying attention." Alana smiled at her child's awareness. "We're finding our way to something that works for all of us. It doesn't need a specific label." "Labels are overrated anyway," Jordan agreed with surprising wisdom. Function matters more than terminology. The observation, so characteristic of Jordan's practical approach to complex situations, made Alana laugh. "Exactly right." As Ethan returned with plates and utensils for their outdoor dinner, Alana watched him interact with Jordan. The easy conversation, the shared mannerisms neither had taught the other, the connection that had formed despite years of absence. Biology had created the initial link, but choice had transformed it into relationship. The future remained unwritten. Jordan's development, career evolutions, potential changes in their unique family structure all lay ahead. But the foundation they'd built these past months felt surprisingly solid for something constructed from such unlikely beginnings. Not the life Alana had planned when she'd left California a decade earlier. Not the family structure she'd imagined when holding infant Jordan in Atlanta. But authentic in ways that mattered more than conventional arrangements. A truth hard one, but worth the journey. Would you say yes to a proposal that honors your freedom? Or would you punish love for what your past did to you? Put your real answer, not your performance. This decision will shape lives for years.